I need to get this out because I've been waiting 6 years for this moment and it finally happened. Quick background because it matters. My older brother Stuart was always the golden child. Not because he earned it, but because he came first. He looked like my dad and he did everything the right way. College, MBA, married at 27, house in the suburbs. I dropped out after 2 years because I couldn't afford it and started working in logistics. Built my way up. No degree, but I clear more than Stuart does now. That part nobody in my family knows. My dad died when I was 28. Left the house and everything in it to Stuart. I got nothing. Not a watch, not a photo album, nothing. My mom defended it because Stuart had the family, the stability, the future. I was just the backup son who never amounted to anything in their eyes. Okay, we need to talk about this golden child phenomenon because it's wild how many families operate like this. Parents really out here running their households like a Fortune 500 company with a clear succession plan. Stuart's the heir apparent. And our guy, he's in the mailroom hoping someone notices he exists. And look, I'm not saying every family has to split everything perfectly equal, but nothing, not a watch, not a photo album. You're telling me this man's father looked at his entire life and said, yeah, there's nothing here worth commemorating. That's not an inheritance decision. That's a statement. That's a final message from beyond the grave saying, you were never really mine. 6 years ago, my mom's health started declining. Heart problems. Stuart suddenly got real busy with his MBA career and his perfect family, too busy to help. So I started paying. First, it was just her heart medication because insurance only covered part. Then, the electricity bill came when she couldn't afford it. Then water. Then property tax when she almost lost the house my dad left to Stuart. Internet, everything. For 6 years, I've been the one keeping her afloat while Stuart sends birthday cards and shows up for Sunday brunch looking like Father of the Year. She never thanked me once. Not once. Instead, she told family I was helping because I felt guilty for being a disappointment, that I owed her for all the stress I caused. This is the part that makes my blood boil, guys. 6 years. Do you understand how long 6 years is? That's 72 months of watching your bank account drain for someone who won't even say thank you. That's 2,190 days of being the reason the lights stay on while your brother shows up with a smile and gets treated like he hung the moon. And the audacity, the sheer audacity of this woman to reframe her son's sacrifice as guilt payment. She's not just ungrateful. She's actively rewriting reality. She's telling the family, oh, he's only helping because he knows he's worthless. Ma'am, worthless people don't pay $847 a month for your heart medication. Worthless people don't save the house your favorite son was supposed to inherit. You know who's worthless in this situation? The guy with the MBA who can't find $50 for his own mother's electric bill. Sunday brunch. My Uncle Miller was in town. We're at this restaurant and my mom starts in on me about being 34 with no wife, no kids, no degree, no future. Says she should have stopped after Stuart. Called me the biggest disappointment she ever brought into this world in front of everyone. Waiters could hear. The table next to us went quiet. I kept eating, cut my food, chewed, told her calmly that this disappointment with no degree has been paying her electricity, water, internet, property tax, and heart medication for 6 years, while her perfect son with the MBA never sent a single dollar. Uncle Miller slammed his drink down and started laughing. Not at mom, at me. Told me I was still chasing my mother's approval like a stray dog at 34 years old. Said I've always been the runt, a complete nobody, that even my dad knew it before he died. That's why he left me nothing. I smiled. I stood up, kissed my mom on the forehead, and told her to enjoy today. Really enjoy it. Enjoy today. Really enjoy it. That is the most menacing thing you can say to someone while kissing them on the forehead. That's some Godfather energy right there. That's, I'm about to restructure your entire existence and you don't even know it yet. And Uncle Miller, bro, you just watched your sister verbally eviscerate her son in a public restaurant. The son who's been funding her life, and your contribution is to call him a stray dog. You compared a man who's been silently carrying his family for 6 years to a homeless animal begging for scraps. That's not just cruel, that's strategically evil. That's making sure he knows that no matter what he does, no matter how much he sacrifices, he will never be seen as anything more than the unwanted second attempt. But here's what Uncle Miller doesn't understand. You can only kick a dog so many times before it stops coming back. And this dog just realized he's been guarding a house that was never going to let him inside anyway. That night, I logged into every account. The utility company where I'm the account holder, the pharmacy where her medication is set up under my payment info, the county website where I pay her property taxes quarterly. I removed my payment information from everything. Canceled every single automatic payment. Monday morning, my phone started buzzing. Mom, Stuart, Uncle Miller, my Aunt April, who hasn't talked to me in 2 years. By midnight, I had 63 missed calls. I haven't answered a single one. But here's what nobody knows yet. Those bills aren't just going to be inconvenient. Property tax is due in 3 weeks. Mom's heart medication costs $847 a month without my payment arrangement. And the house, the one Dad left to Stuart, it's still in Mom's name as her residence. Stuart never transferred it. If she can't pay the taxes, that's going to be a problem for both of them. I've been waiting 6 years for them to push me far enough. They finally did. Update coming because Stuart just showed up at my apartment building. Security wouldn't let him up. He's been in the parking garage for an hour. 63 missed calls in 1 day. You know what that tells me? That tells me everyone in this family knew exactly who was keeping things running. They just never acknowledged it until the machine stopped. It's like when you don't notice your refrigerator humming until it breaks. Suddenly, the silence is deafening. And Aunt April, who hasn't spoken to this man in 2 years, suddenly has his number memorized. Please. These people didn't lose his contact. They just never needed to use it because he was doing his job. The invisible job. The job nobody assigned him officially, but everyone expected him to perform. And Stuart sitting in that parking garage for an hour. That's beautiful. That's poetic. For 6 years, this man has been waiting. Waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for thanks, waiting for someone to see him. Now Stuart gets to wait. And he's only been there an hour. He's got 5 years, 11 months, and about 3 weeks to go before they're even. Update 1. So, Stuart waited in my parking garage for almost 2 hours before I finally went down. Not because I felt bad, because I wanted to see his face when he realized he couldn't fix this with a conversation. Some of you asked why I didn't just keep ignoring him. Here's the thing. I've waited 6 years. I wanted this confrontation. I wanted to hear what excuse he'd come up with. He was leaning against his car when I walked out. Started immediately with how Mom was panicking, how she called him crying about bills she didn't understand. How I needed to explain what was happening, not asking, telling me I needed to explain. Like I was the one who owed anyone an explanation. I told him I stopped paying for everything. Every bill, every medication, every tax payment, all of it. Done. Stuart went quiet for about 10 seconds, then started in on how I couldn't just do that. How Mom depended on that money. How she'd lose the house. I asked him which house? The one Dad left to him? The one that's somehow still in Mom's name because he never bothered to transfer it. The house. He didn't have an answer for that one. Then came the part I'd been waiting for. Stuart started explaining how he couldn't help financially. His wife, Mia, controls their budget. They have 2 kids in private school, his car payment, their mortgage. He listed every single expense like I was supposed to feel sorry for him, like his MBA lifestyle was more important than keeping our mother alive. I asked him how much he made last year. He wouldn't answer. I told him I already knew because Aunt April complained to me 3 years ago about how Stuart was bragging at Thanksgiving about his promotion. $187,000. I make less than that. No degree, and I've been covering Mom's entire life for 6 years while he worried about private school tuition. Mia controls the budget. I need everyone to sit with that sentence for a second. This grown man, this MBA having $187,000 earning golden child of the family just said he can't help his mother because his wife won't let him. Stuart, my brother in Christ, you are telling on yourself so hard right now. You're not explaining why you can't help. You're explaining why you never wanted to. Because here's the thing about budgets. They reflect priorities. Stuart had enough money for private school. That's like $130,000 a year depending on the school. He had enough for his car payment, his mortgage, his lifestyle. But Mom's $847 medication, Mom's electricity, that was never in the budget because Mom was never in his budget. She was in his brother's budget. The brother with no degree, no wife, no kids, no real responsibilities. And now Stuart's standing in a parking garage trying to explain why his lifestyle matters more than his mother's life. And he doesn't even hear how insane he sounds. That MBA really teaching you a lot about ethics, huh, Stuart? Stuart switched tactics fast. Started saying I was being vindictive, that Dad would be ashamed of me, that this was exactly why he left me nothing, that I was proving everyone right about who I really was. I told him Dad left me nothing because Mom convinced him I didn't deserve anything. That she spent my entire childhood telling him I was the mistake, the accident, the one who wasn't planned. That Stuart was the son they wanted and I was the one they got stuck with. I told him I heard her say it to Dad when I was 16 in the kitchen. She didn't know I was home. Stuart said I was making that up. That Mom would never say something like that. That I was always jealous of him and this was my way of getting back at everyone. I laughed. Told him to ask Mom himself. Ask her what she said to Dad in November 2007 about why she wished she'd stopped after one kid. Here's where it gets interesting. Stuart's wife, Mia, texted him while we were talking. I saw his face change when he read it. Turns out Mom had already called Mia directly. Told her that Stuart needed to start covering the bills immediately. Mia was not happy about learning there were bills to cover in the first place. Stuart looked at me and said I just created a massive problem in his marriage. I told him no. Mom created that problem when she decided to call his wife. I just stopped being the family secret that kept everything running. He left after that. Didn't say goodbye. Just got in his car and drove off. I just stopped being the family secret that kept everything running. Write that down. Put that on a t-shirt because that is what so many people in dysfunctional families are. They're the family secret. They're the reason Thanksgiving happens, but they're not in the photos. They're the one who drives grandma to her appointments, but gets seated at the kids' table. They're the load-bearing wall that everyone painted over and forgot was structural. And Mia, oh Mia, welcome to the party, girl. You just found out your husband has been hiding a whole dependent mother from you for your entire marriage. That's not a white lie about forgetting to take out the trash. That's a fundamental deception about who he is and what your money has not been going toward. Stuart didn't just lie to his brother for 6 years. He lied to his wife. He let her think they were building a life together while his brother was subsidizing their ability to do so. Every private school tuition check Mia signed. That was possible because someone else was paying to keep Stuart's mom alive. I hope she does the math. But here's the new complication. Uncle Miller showed up at my workplace Wednesday. Just walked into the lobby and asked reception for me. My coworker Zara came to my desk asking if I knew some older guy demanding to speak with me about a family emergency. Miller wants to have dinner Thursday to discuss the situation. He said he has a proposal. I already know what he's going to try. And I have 6 years of receipts ready. Update 2. Thursday dinner with Uncle Miller happened. Some of you warned me it was a trap. You were right, but not in the way anyone expected. Miller picked this steakhouse near his hotel. Expensive. The kind of place where he could feel like the big man handling family business. I showed up with a folder, 6 years of bank statements, payment confirmations, every single transaction I ever made for Mom, printed and organized by year. Miller started with the concerned uncle routine, talking about how family needs to stick together, how Mom is scared and confused, how this situation is getting out of control. He said he understood I was hurt by what was said at brunch, but that words spoken in frustration shouldn't destroy a family. I asked him if calling me a stray dog chasing approval was frustration. If telling me my dead father knew I was worthless was just words. He didn't answer that. Words spoken in frustration shouldn't destroy a family. Oh, so now we're worried about words destroying families. Where was this energy when Mom was calling him her biggest disappointment in a crowded restaurant? Where was this words matter philosophy when Uncle Miller compared him to a stray dog in front of waiters and strangers? Funny how words only become dangerous weapons when they're being used by the person who's been on the receiving end for 34 years. And Miller showing up at his workplace, that's a power move. That's, I'm going to embarrass you in your professional environment because I still don't see you as someone deserving of boundaries. He walked into this man's job like he was collecting on a debt. Because in Miller's mind, that's exactly what this is. The family investment finally going bad and someone needs to get the asset back in line. Then came the proposal. Miller offered to pay Mom's bills himself for the next 6 months if I agreed to resume payments after that and if I apologized to Mom for the way I left Brunch. He framed it like he was doing me a favor, giving me time to cool down and come back to the family. I opened my folder, showed him the numbers. $847 monthly for medication, $340 average for utilities, $4,200 quarterly for property taxes. I asked him if he was ready to cover $73,000 over 6 months, including the back taxes that were about to come due. His face changed real fast. Miller didn't know the full scope. Nobody did except me. Mom never told anyone how much I was actually paying. She let everyone think it was just a little help here and there. Miller thought he was offering to cover maybe a few hundred a month. He tried to pivot, started saying Stuart should be handling this since he inherited the house, that the property was Stuart's responsibility. I agreed completely. Told him Stuart should absolutely be paying. But Stuart's wife, Mia, just found out about all of this 3 days ago, and their marriage is currently imploding over the fact that Stuart hid a dependent mother from her for their entire relationship. $73,000. Let that number breathe for a second. This man has quietly funneled $73,000 to his mother over 6 years while she told the family he was helping a little out of guilt. She minimized his sacrifice on purpose, not because she was embarrassed to need help, because she didn't want anyone to know how much he was actually worth. If the family knew the real number, they'd have to acknowledge he was important. They'd have to admit the disappointment was actually carrying them, so she kept it vague. Oh, he helps out sometimes. Ma'am, helping out sometimes is buying groceries when you visit. Helping out sometimes is covering a phone bill once. $73,000 is a down payment on a house. That's a full salary for some people. And Miller really walked in thinking he could write a few checks and make this go away. The audacity of thinking a Band-Aid would fix a wound this deep. That's when Miller said something that made everything click into place. He said Mom always protected Stuart from financial stress because Stuart was sensitive. That after Dad died, the whole family agreed Stuart shouldn't be burdened with Mom's care because he had his own family to build. That I was the logical choice because I was alone and had no real responsibilities. They decided this behind my back. The entire family sat down at some point and agreed that I would be the one to carry Mom because my life didn't matter as much, because I had no wife, no kids, no future worth protecting. I asked Miller when this conversation happened. He said right after Dad's funeral 6 years ago, while I was still grieving, they were dividing up who would be responsible for what. Stuart got the house and assets. I got the bills and the burden. And Mom got to keep pretending her golden child was perfect while treating me like the help. I stood up, told Miller there was no proposal he could make that would change anything, that I didn't want back into this family, that I wanted them to feel exactly what I felt for 6 years. Invisible, unappreciated, stuck with a weight nobody else wanted to carry. He called me cruel. Said I was going to kill my own mother over pride. I told him Mom had 2 other options sitting at that table with her at brunch. She could ask Stuart. She could ask him. But they both expected the disappointment to keep paying for the privilege of being treated like garbage. Left him with the dick. They had a meeting. They sat down after burying their father and divvied up the family responsibilities like it was a corporate restructuring. Okay, Stuart gets the assets because he's sensitive. The other one gets the liabilities because his life doesn't matter. And nobody thought to tell him. Nobody thought maybe the guy who was about to become the family's unofficial banker should have a say in whether he wanted that job. This wasn't delegation, folks. This was sacrifice without consent. They looked at him and saw a resource to be extracted, not a person to be consulted. And the justification? You were alone. You had no real responsibilities. Translation: your life was empty enough that we could fill it with our problems. Your loneliness made you useful. Your lack of a family made you available to serve ours. That's not family looking out for each other. That's a family identifying the weakest member and loading them with the weight everyone else refused to carry. Friday morning, I got a text from Aunt April. Mom collapsed. She's at the hospital. Stuart is demanding I come. And apparently Mia just told Stuart she wants a separation because she found out he's been lying about money for years. This is all falling apart faster than I expected. Final update. I went to the hospital. Not for Mom, for myself. I needed to look them all in the face one more time. The whole family was in the waiting area. Stuart looking destroyed, Aunt April crying, Uncle Miller pacing, and Mom was stable, awake, asking for me specifically. The nurse said she'd been saying my name for an hour. Stuart intercepted me before I could go anywhere. Started immediately with how this was my fault, how the stress I caused triggered her episode, how I needed to fix this right now. Mia wasn't there. He said she'd taken the kids to her mother's house and wasn't answering his messages. I asked him how the property tax situation was going. He went pale. Turns out he'd finally looked into it. The deadline was in 2 weeks. $16,800 due. If unpaid, the county starts the tax lien process. Mom can't pay. Stuart can't pay without Mia's agreement because their finances are joint and Mia isn't agreeing to anything right now. Mia took the kids and left. Stuart's marriage is imploding. Mom's in the hospital. The property taxes are coming due and nobody can pay them. And Stuart, beautiful, golden, protected Stuart, is finally drowning in the same water his brother has been treading for 6 years. But here's the difference. When our guy was drowning, nobody threw him a rope. They threw him more weight and told him to swim harder. Now Stuart's drowning, and suddenly it's a family emergency. Suddenly, everyone needs to rush to fix it. Suddenly, there are meetings and phone calls and 63 people dialing the same number. Where was this energy when the disappointment was quietly keeping everything afloat? Where were the family meetings then? Right. They didn't need meetings because one person was handling it silently, invisibly, the way they designed it. Miller tried to step in again. Said he'd cover the taxes if I agreed to come back and help manage Mom's care. I told him the offer was 6 years too late, that I didn't want to manage anything, that I wanted to watch them figure out what I'd been doing alone this entire time. Then I went to see Mom. She was sitting up in bed. Looked smaller than I remembered. Started crying the second I walked in. Kept saying she didn't mean it, that she loved me, that I was her son and she needed me. I sat down and asked her one question. I asked her to tell me what she said to Dad in November 2007. The kitchen conversation. I told her I'd been standing in the hallway and heard everything. She stopped crying, just looked at me, and then she admitted it. Said she told Dad that having me was a mistake, that I was difficult from birth, that I drained her, that Stuart was the son she actually wanted. She said she was exhausted that day and didn't mean it. Yes, she said it 20 years ago. And she never apologized because she thought I didn't know. I told her I built my entire adult life around that conversation. Every promotion I worked for, every dollar I saved, every bill I paid for her was me trying to prove I wasn't a mistake. And she took all of it and still called me her biggest disappointment in a restaurant full of strangers. 20 years. This man has been carrying a conversation he overheard when he was 16 for 20 years. Every achievement, every sacrifice, every bill paid, it was all an audition for a role he was never going to get. He spent 2 decades trying to prove to his mother that he deserved to exist. And she didn't even know he was performing. She didn't know he hurt her. She didn't know every dollar he sent was him screaming, "Am I enough yet?" into a void that was never listening. And her defense, I was exhausted that day. Ma'am, exhausted people say they need a nap. Exhausted people snap at traffic. Exhausted people don't turn to their husband and systematically explain why one of their children is a mistake while the other is a miracle. That's not exhaustion talking. That's truth slipping out when you're too tired to keep the mask on. She asked what I wanted. What would make this right? I told her I wanted Stuart to sell the house Dad left him and use that money to pay for her care. I wanted Miller to admit to the whole family that they decided at Dad's funeral to dump Mom's financial burden on me because my life wasn't worth protecting. And I wanted her to tell Stuart the truth about what she said to Dad. All of it. She said she couldn't do that. That it would destroy Stuart. That he idolized Dad. And finding out Dad agreed with her that I was a burden would break him. Dad agreed with her. She just confirmed something I always suspected but never knew for certain. Both of them looked at me as the mistake son. And Stuart got to live his whole life not knowing any of it. I stood up, told her she had 2 weeks to figure out the taxes, that I wasn't paying another cent, that if Stuart had to sell the house to cover her costs, then maybe he'd finally understand what I carried alone for 6 years. Walked out past Stuart and Miller without saying anything else. It would destroy Stuart. Even in this moment in the hospital after collapsing, facing the very real possibility of losing everything. And her instinct is still to protect Stuart. Still she just admitted both parents viewed one son as a mistake, and her primary concern is making sure the other son never finds out he was complicit in a lie. She's not worried about the son she damaged. She's worried about the son she protected. And that right there tells you everything you need to know about this family. They would rather let one son carry shame he didn't earn than risk the other son feeling an ounce of discomfort. Stuart's comfort has always been worth more than this man's entire existence. Even now. Even at the end. That was 3 days ago. Since then, Stuart has texted me 40 times begging me to talk. Miller flew home without saying goodbye, and Aunt April sent me a long message saying the family is meeting this weekend to discuss selling the house. They're going to have to do together what I did alone. And they're going to have to look at each other knowing they chose this. They picked who would carry the weight and who would be protected. Now everyone carries it. Mom called me her biggest disappointment. Turns out I was the only one keeping her entire life from collapsing.